When an avoidant pulls back, everyone tells you the same tired lie. They don't care. But here's the raw truth no one has dared to say until now. Pulling away can be the loudest cry of love you'll ever hear. Because real love terrifies an avoidant, not because they're broken, but because they feel too much. Because the moment they sense that you matter, that you could actually hurt them, they go silent. They vanish. And it's not because they don't feel, it's because they feel so deeply, their nervous system goes into war mode. They retreat not to punish you, but to protect themselves. Because loving you feels like danger. It feels like exposure. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff without a harness. And no one taught them how to handle that kind of vulnerability. You think they ghosted you because they lost interest. No. They ghosted you because they found out how real this is. And here's the most shocking part. If they're still watching your stories, if they're still asking about you, if they keep popping back into your orbit when they think you've moved on, that's not indecision. That's attachment screaming through fear. You want to know how an avoidant loves? Not with words, not with promises, but with distance and with testing. They test if you'll chase. They test if you'll stay calm. They test if your love is safe enough to disarm their panic. But they're not heartless, they're hyper-aware. Hyper-aware of rejection, of failure, of opening up and being discarded like they've experienced in the past. And when you got too close, it wasn't rejection, it was a trauma reflex. Listen to me. The avoidant doesn't run because you're wrong for them. They run because you're exactly what they never believed they could have. When an avoidant pulls away, the world rushes in to give you the same recycled answer. They're just not that into you. But what no one tells you is that pulling away might be their only language for, I care about you more than I can process. You don't see their absence for what it really is. A smoke signal from a nervous system in flames. Because what the avoidant won't say with words, they scream in silence. And if you know how to listen, you'll hear the panic inside their pullback. The moment they feel something real, it doesn't light them up, it sets off alarms. It awakens a fight or flight response that's not about logic, not about you, but about how love once felt like danger, disappointment, or emotional collapse. They don't run because of who you are. They run because of what love has done to them before you ever showed up. You see detachment. But what you're really seeing is a person wrestling to control a tidal wave of emotion that their body doesn't know how to handle. They pull away to find air, not because they want to lose you, but because you are oxygen in a room they're afraid to breathe in. You think they don't feel enough? It's the opposite. They feel too much. And their body shuts down to avoid drowning in what they've never been taught to survive. Their silence isn't apathy, it's overstimulation. Their coldness isn't rejection, it's self-defense. You were told love is loud and clear, but for them, love is frightening and unpredictable. And when their nervous system goes into lockdown, they don't disappear to hurt you. They disappear because their internal world is shaking like an earthquake, and they're trying to stop the walls from collapsing. The intensity of a deep connection hits them like a storm they never asked for. It's not that they don't see your value. It's that your value is so undeniable, it terrifies them. It makes them confront emotions they've buried under years of emotional armor. And that armor doesn't just fall off because someone nice comes along. It rusts in place. It fights to stay intact. And that resistance you feel, it's not indifference, it's survival. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the vulnerability that love demands. Vulnerability feels like danger to them, and that's not your fault. That's the ghost of every time they opened up and got punished for it. Every time they hoped and got crushed. Every time they believed and got betrayed. So now they equate closeness with chaos, warmth with pain, intimacy with loss. You didn't do this to them, but you did awaken it. And that's why their pullback hurts so much, because you know what you felt, and they felt it too. But they didn't know what to do with it. This isn't about mind games. This isn't manipulation. This isn't lack of care. This is a body and brain in survival mode trying to protect them from a love that feels too good to trust. You don't run from what you don't care about. You don't hide from what doesn't shake you. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding the heartbreak they're convinced is coming. because somewhere in their past, they learned that love always ends in pain, so they leave before they get left. They shut down before you can shut them out. They self-sabotage because if they ruin it, at least they were in control of the loss. And that control becomes a comfort, a prison, a cycle they can't break alone. And that's why your presence feels like pressure. Your consistency feels like a trap. Because part of them wants to trust you, but a louder part warns them that if they let you in, you'll see their wounds and run. So they hide first, not because you aren't enough, but because you might be too much for a heart that's been conditioned to expect pain in every good thing. They didn't choose this reflex. They didn't wake up and decide to push you away. This is a trauma response masquerading as indifference. And the tragedy is they often don't even know it. They just feel fear and they obey it. When you got close, something in them said, this could destroy me, not because you would destroy them, but because the possibility of being known and then discarded feels unbearable. So instead, they run to the one place they know: isolation, silence, emotional hiding. But here's what you need to understand. The very act of pulling away is rooted in the intensity of what they feel for you. If you didn't matter, they'd stay calm. If you were casual, they wouldn't panic. It's precisely because your presence stirred something deep that they collapsed inward. They're not numb. They're overloaded. Their shutdown isn't a wall to keep you out. It's a desperate attempt to survive the flood of emotions they've never felt safe expressing. And so they vanish. They shut down the system, not to erase you, but to protect what little control they have left. Because in their world, love doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a battlefield. And when you show up with something safe, something stable, it doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels suspicious. The body doesn't recognize calm when it's been trained in chaos. That's why you felt the connection and they felt the threat. You offered warmth and they froze. You gave openness and they closed. You didn't scare them. The hope did. The dream of something real, the chance that this could be different, that it could actually work. And that's the scariest thing in the world for someone who's built a fortress around their heart. Because if they let you in and it breaks, it will destroy them in ways even they don't understand. So they run now to hurt less later. They disappear now to avoid devastation later. They convince themselves they don't care because caring is a liability, because caring is vulnerability, and vulnerability to them has always led to pain. But here's the paradox. Their withdrawal is not absence of emotion. It's the proof of it. They avoid what overwhelms them. And love, real, deep, healthy love, overwhelms every broken part of them that was taught not to hope. Their silence doesn't mean the connection wasn't real. It means the connection was too real for their nervous system to digest. That's the truth the world never tells you. That's the part no one teaches. Avoidants don't flee from emptiness, they flee from intensity, from the terrifying possibility that someone might actually see them and stay. And if you're the one they ran from, you weren't the problem. You were the mirror, the reflection of what they never believed they deserved. And the fear of losing that reflection was so great, they left it before it could leave them. So when they vanished, they weren't abandoning you. They were drowning in emotions that had no name. And they ran not because you meant nothing, but because you meant everything. When an avoidant pulls back, it's not always because they're done. It's because their nervous system has just stepped into high alert, and suddenly everything that felt good now feels dangerous. What looks like distance is often a test, and not the kind rooted in manipulation, but the kind created in fear, in trauma, in needing proof that they are safe in a world that's always made them feel like love is a setup for abandonment. When an avoidant creates space, they're not always trying to push you away. They're trying to see if the space itself will be met with chaos, desperation, or judgment. They're not looking to be chased. They're watching to see what you do when they step back. And the way you react to that step back tells them everything about whether you're safe to attach to or whether they'll have to survive another disappointment. Avoidants don't ask, "Will you love me?" They ask, "Will you turn into the thing I fear the moment I stop performing?" They watch. They pull away and observe. They withdraw and test if your love is stable or conditional, if your presence is real or reactive, if your warmth disappears the moment their walls come up. They don't do this to punish you. They do this to protect a fragile system inside of them that is constantly preparing for the crash. Because in their past, the moment they got comfortable was the moment everything fell apart. So now they prepare for disaster like it's the only possible outcome. And the test is not just about you, it's about survival. To someone secure, distance may seem like rejection. But to someone avoidant, distance is a measure of emotional safety. They need to know if the connection you offer can exist without pressure, without noise, without you demanding access to their feelings on your timeline. They want to know, can you stay calm when I retreat? Can you remain emotionally regulated when I'm silent? Because if you can't, they tell themselves they were right to keep their guard up. But if you can, something inside them starts to shift. Because your calm response isn't just attractive, it's disarming. It tells their nervous system this love might not hurt me. This person doesn't chase, doesn't panic, doesn't punish. And that feels foreign, terrifying, but magnetic. They won't tell you they're testing you. They may not even know they're doing it. It's not a strategy, it's a subconscious defense. But every action you take during their retreat is being cataloged. And what they're looking for isn't perfection, it's proof that your love doesn't come with strings, that you're not waiting to explode, not waiting to abandon, not waiting to guilt trip them into emotional closeness they're not yet ready to offer. Avoidants crave depth, but they fear the conditions that usually come with it. They don't want to be someone's emotional obligation. They want to be free to choose closeness at their own pace. And when they sense they're being watched, pushed, or evaluated during that retreat, they panic. So they test with silence. They test with distance. They test with slow replies and long pauses and subtle disappearances. Not to manipulate you, but to monitor what kind of energy you bring when you're not getting what you want. Because in their mind, love has always come with a price. And they're terrified that once you see their imperfections, their hesitation, their slow processing, their emotional confusion, you'll reject them the way others have. And so they test to see if your love will survive their humanness. Most people fail this test not because they're bad, but because they don't understand it. They interpret the distance as disinterest and respond with anxiety, with confrontation, with ultimatums. And the avoidant who already felt on edge now sees their worst fear confirmed. Intimacy equals pressure, connection equals control, closeness equals the loss of freedom, and they retreat even deeper. But those who pass the test, the ones who hold steady, who give space without pulling away, who stay warm but not invasive, those are the ones who slowly start to earn trust in places trust never lived before. The test isn't about words. You can't talk your way into safety with an avoidant. They've heard words before. They've been promised forever before. What they want to see is your energy when things don't go your way. They want to feel your patience in the silence, your stability in the storm, your willingness to stay soft when they're afraid to be vulnerable. And if you meet them with anger, accusation, or desperation, it reinforces the belief that intimacy is dangerous, that it's not safe to let someone in. But if you meet them with stillness, if you mirror peace instead of panic, something in them starts to break open. Not quickly, but quietly. You have to understand their fear of intimacy isn't about you. It's about survival mechanisms that were built long before you arrived. Mechanisms that say, don't get too close or you'll lose yourself. Don't rely on anyone or you'll be disappointed. Don't let anyone see your fear or they'll use it against you. They're not testing you because they're heartless. They're testing you because they've been heartbroken by people who said all the right things and still left. They're not trying to confuse you. They're trying to survive a love that feels too good to be true. And the only way they know how to trust it is to test it. But the test isn't about passing some perfect standard. It's about consistency. It's about them watching to see if your behavior matches your words over time. If you'll hold your ground when they pull away, not chase, not vanish, but remain emotionally neutral, like a safe harbor instead of a storm. Because deep down, they want to attach. They just need to know that attachment doesn't mean danger. They need to know that their silence won't be met with chaos, that their distance won't be used against them. That your love isn't a weapon waiting to strike the moment they get human. Every time they test you with distance, it's a window into their soul. It's an invitation not to chase, but to anchor. And if you can understand that the test is not rejection, but revelation, you'll see the truth hiding beneath the silence. That this person isn't cold, they're scared. That this silence isn't absence. It's a desperate cry for proof that love can exist without pressure, that connection can exist without fear, that closeness can exist without collapse. When you recognize the test for what it is, everything changes. You stop taking it personally. You stop reacting with fear. And you start showing up in a way that rewires their belief system. You become the first experience that teaches them love doesn't have to come with suffering. That affection doesn't have to lead to abandonment. That closeness doesn't have to mean control. You become the evidence they've been waiting for and didn't know they were searching for. Not by saying the right thing, but by becoming the calm they never knew existed. When an avoidant leaves your life, they don't always disappear because they're over you. Sometimes they disappear because they're overwhelmed by what you've awakened in them and they don't know what to do with it. But the world tells you to move on, to forget them from your kitchen, to erase them from your mind like they never cared. What no one dares to say is this: if they're still checking in, if they're still watching your stories, if they're still showing up subtly when you thought it was over, it's not confusion, it's evidence. It's not emotional games. It's emotional paralysis from your kitchen. Avoidants don't orbit people they don't care about. They don't linger around people they're done with. If they're still in your atmosphere from your kitchen, it's because you still occupy space in their heart, whether they admit it or not. They're not staying close because they want to hurt you. They're staying close because being too far feels just as terrifying as being too close. So they hang around the edges, trying to balance safety and connection without losing control. Their fear of closeness doesn't cancel out their attachment. It just alters how they express it. From your kitchen, and their love doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in spirals, forward, back, sideways, because they're fighting a battle you can't see, but from you think they're gone because you didn't matter. But if they're still watching from a distance, they're not done. They're watching because they want to know if the door is still open. They want to know if they burn the bridge or if there's still a path back to you. But they don't come running because running requires certainty. And what they feel for you doesn't feel safe enough to be certain yet. So they observe, they check, they look for signs that you're still there, still warm, still within reach. That's not confusion. It's survival. It's emotional tug of war between their longing and their fear. Because deep down, they want to return, but their nervous system screams at them that closeness equals pain, that being known equals being hurt, that loving someone means eventually losing them. And so they test you not by words, but by presence, by subtle visits, by shadowy appearances in your digital world, by keeping just enough distance to stay, but not enough to fully let go. And that's why you feel haunted. That's why you can't shake them. That's why they're still there, even when they've said nothing. Your kitchen, because avoidants don't disappear like most people. They retreat with the hope that if they watch long enough, they'll finally feel safe to return. They're not indecisive. They're terrified that if they come back and you reject them, it will confirm every belief they've had about love being unsafe. So they stay just close enough to monitor the temperature, to study your energy, to measure whether the damage is reversible. Their silence doesn't mean you've been erased. It means you've been archived into the deepest part of them, the part they don't show anyone, the part that aches in private, while pretending to be fine in public. They may not tell you they miss you, but they'll drive by your page like it's a house they're not brave enough to knock on. They may not message you, but they'll memorize your photos like snapshots of a home they're scared to enter. And here's what no one tells you. Avoidants don't reappear out of boredom. They reappear when the weight of your absence becomes heavier than the fear of closeness, when the quiet starts to hurt more than the panic, when the memories start to outweigh the resistance, when the stillness feels like a punishment instead of a refuge. That moment doesn't happen because they stopped being avoidant. It happens because despite all their instincts, their heart keeps circling back to the one place it still feels pulled toward. And if you're that place, if you're the person they keep hovering around, if you're the one they can't fully let go of, then understand this. They didn't walk away because you weren't enough. From your kitchen, they walked away because what you gave them much for the version of them that wasn't ready. And even after they left, but the residue of your love still lingers inside them like a melody they can't unhear. They don't revisit everyone. They revisit the ones who made them feel something different, something safe, something warm. And even if they couldn't receive it at the time, they remember it. They study it from your kitchen. They return to it in the middle of the night when their thoughts are louder than their defenses. And while they may look detached on the surface, the truth is far darker. They are emotionally flooded. And instead of reaching for connection, they retreat into silence, hoping that distance will make the emotions disappear. But they don't. They intensify, they echo, haunt, and so they linger in your orbit, caught between wanting to come back and being terrified of what that would mean. Avoidants don't need more pressure. They need more proof that love doesn't have to come with a cost, that your presence isn't a trap, that intimacy isn't going to be used against them if they're still in your life in any form. Even the quietest one, it's not because they're playing with you. It's because you cracked something open in them that they didn't know existed. And now they're trying to figure out what to do with it. They're not orbiting for attention. They're orbiting for courage. They're not testing your patience. They're testing their own limits, your kitchen. And if they're watching you from a distance, it's because a part of them is still connected to you in a way they don't have the words to explain. And that's the part the world doesn't see. That's the hidden agony behind avoidant behavior. It's not the absence of love. It's the inability to navigate it. It's the fear of messing up something good. It's the paralysis that hits when closeness starts to feel like a trap. And even when they leave, even when they say nothing, even when they act cold, they carry you with them. They replay the last conversation. They scroll through old pictures. They wonder if you still think about them too. And they tell themselves stories to avoid reaching out. Your kitchen. Like, you've moved on. You're better off. They don't deserve you because believing those stories is safer than hearing you confirm them. But if they're still in your world, even quietly, it means something inside them hasn't closed the chapter. It means you still live somewhere in their system, not as a threat, but as a possibility. And when an avoidant keeps showing up, it's not because they're stuck in the past. It's because they haven't the courage to face the future without you. They don't orbit you because they're confused about their feelings. They orbit because they know exactly what they feel. And it terrifies them. So they settle for the shadows, for the almost, for the in-between, because it feels safer to observe love from afar than to risk holding it and losing it again. They don't keep returning because it's a pattern. They keep returning because you felt like home in a world where they've never felt safe. You made them feel seen without being controlled, loved without being smothered, accepted without being judged. And that kind of connection doesn't fade. It lingers, it echoes, it pulls. And no matter how far they go, a part of them always finds its way back to you, not because you begged, not because you chased, but because in the quiet, you became the one place they knew love didn't have to hurt,